In this lesson, we'll use the pose tools to pose up our little character. So let's turn off the cushions for now. And we're just going to concentrate on this guy. I'm going to dial down his subdivision level down 1. And so what we can do now is really quickly pose this guy. Now there are a lot of options here for the pose tools and creating poses. You can save poses, you can create complete skeletons and so forth, but we're not going to get into all of that. We're just going to create a simple pose. So we're going to use these 4 tools. And the first thing we want to do is create a joint. So let's say we want to just pose the leg up. So I'll draw down from where I want the joint, and you can see as I rotate this around, I can get a green ring coming around the leg, and so I want it to kind of come around where I want the bend to happen. And then the length of this line will determine kind of the smoothness of the transition into the weighting. And the green area is the weighted area. So that's the area that's actually going to move. So now if we go into pose, we can come in and just use the left mouse button to kind of rotate this leg around. And depending on whether you rotate out here or actually on the joint, will kind of determine how that rotation happens. Click on Create Joint. That'll commit that pose and move on to enable you to create another joint. And so now we can come in here and maybe move the knee a little bit. So again, kind of just rotating this around a little. We can do the same thing over here with this leg. Come in from this side, just keeping an eye on that transition. Kind of open this leg up a little bit more. Maybe we want to rotate the ankle a bit. We can draw a joint down at the ankle and kind of rotate that and twist it around a little bit. Coming from different sides here, kind of getting a different view. We can rotate it that way. All right, we can also kind of bend him over a little bit. So if you actually look over here in the object list, you'll see the skeleton, and there are options for saving poses, updating poses, and so forth. You also have the skeleton itself. If you delete that skeleton, it's just going to get rid of the joints and the bones, but it's not going to affect your sculpted mesh. So let's come in and now create a new joint. Let's do one kind of right in the center here. So we want to kind of slouch this guy over, and so I'll drag up towards the area that I want to actually move, and try that again. There we go. So all the green area is what's going to actually move, and you can see that the eyes and the teeth are not green, and so we want to actually add weighting to those because we want them to move when we pose this model. Otherwise the eyes are going to stay behind. So under weights, I want to make sure the invert is turned off. I'm just going to click on the brush, and I'm going to click on the different objects and choose down here flood. So for instance, I'll click on the tooth and flood, and just to kind of make sure that it is completely weighted. Now the eyes disappear, some kind of display bug, but they're still there. They'll still move with it. So now we can come in with pose, and I can really bend this guy over and kind of twist him around a little bit. You can see we get kind of a nice smooth transition here. Kind of bend him over this way a little bit. He's going to be kind of holding this coin off to the side, so I just want to kind of twist him and pose him a little bit more. So now if we go ahead and commit that pose by just clicking on Create Joint, that pose will be committed, and then we'll just check and make sure that those eyes are still there. So if we go to Sculpt, you can see those eyes are in there. All right, let's go ahead and turn the head. So going back to Pose, go to Create Joint, and let's go ahead and create one at the neck. Okay. And here, let me actually delete this first. And then create our joint. Now we'll go to weights. And again, let's weight this eye and the teeth as well. and then we'll bend the head sort of back up. So we'll go to pose, and I want to kind of get in here, and I want to kind of rotate this back up a little bit. So kind of click on the joint, kind of rotate this back around a little bit, and just kind of an interesting pose here. All right, we can go ahead and commit that. And then the rest of the posing we can do would be with the arms. All right, you don't have to delete the skeleton. It just seems to help with the bug here with the display. So what we want to do now probably is start to kind of put this guy in position and get the coin in position as well. So we can turn on the cushions and the penny, and let's select the character, the eyes, and the teeth, and let's translate, and we'll kind of move him up into position, kind of move him back towards the back. Something like that. Okay, and once you get him in position, you can tweak your pose a little bit to get it looking the way that you want. Let's go ahead and select the penny and move it up into position. So kind of move it back here. Let's move it up. And let's rotate it so he's kind of going to be clutching it. So rotate it around in this X direction, and then maybe around in this direction. So it's going to be something like that. And I want it to be recognizable. So we'll put it up so it's sort of, you can see what it is. You could put it almost kind of right up against his face if you wanted to. All right, so something like that. Okay, and then we can start to pose up the arms if we want to. So we can go to the pose tools. Let's create a joint at the shoulder here. And then we can go to pose. And we can start to bring this arm around a little bit. Maybe bring it up. Okay. Now if we need to cheat things a little bit, we can do that. You can middle mouse drag to move. You can see at the left mouse button will rotate vertically and horizontally. Middle mouse button on the joint will allow you to scale it out, which will take a second to kind of calculate. But you can not only kind of move things, but you can kind of scale them out as well. So I can scale that way out if I want to, and then scale the rest of the arm sort of back in. And then we can rotate, oops, let me go to pose rather. And then we can rotate the, bring the coin in a little bit. So just taking that penny, and let's go ahead and kind of rotate that once we get the, stops thinking here. So we can kind of rotate it and then translate it out a little bit. All right, and then go back to our pose. And it's just going to be a process here. We can come back to pose and click on this one. And we can kind of rotate this, kind of twisting it around a little bit, and move it up. And you can see that it's not quite where we want it, so we can position it just for our shot. come down here and move it. And then rotate this bottom joint. And then come in and create the joint for the hand. And sort of spin that around and rotate it. And then you can do the same thing with the sort of the other arm. All right, so he's sort of clutching the penny to his chest. So just have a little fun posing the model. It doesn't have to be exact. You just want to practice moving those joints around, getting them into a good position. So in the next lesson, we'll take the posed model. I'll go ahead and move that other arm into position, and then we'll tweak the sculpt. So it's kind of inevitable when we go ahead and pose something so quickly that we're going to have issues that we need to deal with. And so we'll make sure that to modify it, we'll add some asymmetry to the model, some expression to the model, and get this finished up. So we'll go ahead and do that next.